Everybody. My name is Lucas Liu, and my partner tonight, Alyssa O'Shea, will be talking about what is the CEC and why you should vote in the CEC election. As everybody knows, the voting started on Saturday, the 1st, and runs until the 11th. So if you haven't voted yet, now's a good time to either, if you're unsure of the process, or if you don't have your my student.nyc account set up, we'll walk you through that process so that you can see how it's done. But then also just get familiar with what the CECs are, so you know what you're voting about, and also so that you can see how important it is. And it's actually, I think, taken on a more importance over the last few years than in the past, possibly, given all the changes and the big differences people have in policy and how the DOE should be moving forward. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Alyssa. And the other thing, feel free to raise your hand, interrupt, ask questions as we go along. No need to wait till the end or anything like that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alyssa O'Shea. First, we're going to start with just a brief explanation of what a CEC is. CEC stands for Community Education Council, and they are education policy advisory bodies. They were previously called school boards for some of us who have been around the city a long time. They are responsible for reviewing and evaluating the district's educational programs, approving zoning lines, also approving renaming of schools, things like that, and for holding public hearings on certain matters. So they are a public body. They have to meet in public. They have to have their meetings announced ahead of time so people can sign up and attend. And they are defined by New York State education law. So CEC members are public officials who serve their communities as unpaid volunteers. So there are 32 CECs for each geographic school district, and there's 4 citywide councils. And the citywide councils are Citywide Council for Special Education, the Citywide Council for English Language Learners, the Citywide Council for High School, which has each one borough each, and CEC 75, which is District 75 students. I'm going to place this link in the chat in case you want more information about community education councils and more definitions. But basically, CECs are supposed to represent the students and the families in the school district. So who are on the CECs and what do they do? So composition of the CEC is normally 9 members that are elected, and those are parents of children pre-K through 8th grade that attend those district schools. 2 members are appointed by the borough president. I myself was a borough president appointee for the last 3 years on my council. And there's 1 member that is a non-voting high school student appointed by the superintendent. Now, not all CECs have that many members. I can tell you from my own experience, they fluctuate. Ideally, you would have this full body of people. So what does the responsibility of the CEC entail? So mainly CECs have to have at least 1 public meeting per month. And at that meeting, parents can attend, principals can attend, various public officials come, the media may be present, but there's always a superintendent's report where the district superintendent just talks about important issues and topics for that month. And then parents in the community can provide public comments, and public officials usually check in prior to the public comment period. Like I said earlier, CECs approve zoning lines, school renaming, but one of the things they also do that's really important is they pass resolutions that go on to the panel for education policy. And some of you have sat through those very long meetings where many topics are discussed. But the CEC resolutions hopefully have some influence on those votes because they express the district parents' preference for those topics. CEC members must make school visits for capital planning, and they do their annual evaluation of the superintendent, and they host chancellor town halls, usually once a term, which is every 2 years. The chancellor will come and there's a big public meeting for all of the schools and parents. I love the title of this slide. Why should we care about CEC? So unless you have a problem with something in your school, you probably never heard of the CEC. Most people don't really interact much with the CEC until something comes up that they want to express their opinion on. And that's why you should care about the CEC, because the CEC is the voice for the parents in that district. And it's things from basic zoning, you know, where you live and what school you were zoned for determines which CEC you're in and the schools in that zone and how they're named. And some of the schools in the last couple of years have had diversity initiatives, and they have greatly affected the students in those populations, in those districts. So D15, for instance, D3, and most recently D28, which is in Queens, where I live, had a diversity plan on the table that a lot of parents were very vocal about, and they came in person to the meeting to express their opinion, because parent engagement is key when things are being rezoned or diversified. You also will find CEC's focus public attention on education issues that affect all students, and academic things like curriculum, you know, how grades are reported, if tests are opted in or out, admissions, you know, what types of programs are offered in that district, like gifted and talented programs, screened middle and high schools, which up until this past year, you know, were available in almost every single district. And the SHSAT, which is also a hot topic lately for the specialized high school admissions process. Another hot topic has been school safety officers and where they fit in the school environment. Should they be in the DOE? Should they still be part of the NYPD? This is another area that parents have very strong opinions on, and coming to a CEC meeting, they can express those opinions. I had asked Lucas to add the charter school expansion issue in because in my district, we have had a charter school take over more of a local public school to expand into the high school age range. And charter schools are supposed to come to the CEC and present when they want to open or expand in that district. So, you know, parents have different feelings on charter schools, and the CEC is a place where they can come and express those opinions. So the opinions are there, people are voicing them, but who's actually listening? Well, you have the superintendent there every meeting, and the superintendent should pay attention to what the parents are saying because that's who the superintendent is supposed to be serving, right? But underneath that, there's a whole structure in the superintendent's office. There's all sorts of people there that can address different needs and issues for parents, and the principals usually attend those meetings. But hopefully the PEP is listening when we put resolutions forward and CEC members speak at their public meetings. And believe me, the media does come to our meetings. They do, and they will put your name and photo, which they are allowed to take if you're a CEC member because you're a public official. They will put you in the newspaper and they will quote you. So when you're at a CEC meeting, in a public hearing, in a public forum, you are representing your district, the parents in that district, and the media is sometimes there. So for these reasons, you really want to be clear about who's going to represent you. Who do you want to elect? Who best represents what you want in your public school? That's why you should vote and you should care about the CEC. How do we elect CEC members? So up until 2019, the PTA were the selectors. The PTA president, the secretary, and the treasurer together decided from the list, the roster of approved vetted candidates who would serve on the district CEC. But this year, and the DOE is very excited about this, this is the first year that all parents with kids in NYC public district schools can vote for their representatives. And to vote, parents must have the New York City schools account. I'm going to put the link in the chat in a minute for that. And this New York City schools account is usually used for things like your student documents, for the report card transcript, things like that, to check on test scores and assessments. And it has a bunch of information about basic, attendance and enrollment for your student. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. And I'm sorry, Lucas, you're going to take over now. Thanks. Sorry about that.
All right. Thanks a lot. So feel free to raise your hand, interrupt if you have any questions. All right, so we're going to go through this a little bit quick. I mean, that does actually, if you want to do a show of hands, does everybody have their New York Students account set up? That's where you go and vote. Right? And if you don't, what you need to do is get a creation code from your parent coordinator at your child's school. Just simply call up the school and they'll give you the code. And you'll need your student's 9-digit OSIS number, which is on multiple school documents that you will receive. Pre-K centers, why they can't vote? Well, they are not part of those pre-K centers do not fall under the purview of the CEC. So they're outside of our scope of responsibility, and we have no say on how they operate or the parents there. You know, those are independently run or run by nonprofits, and they have their own, you know, governance structure. So that's why the pre-K centers are not part of this. So as Elsa was saying, here's what you can get. Here's the information you typically see on your New York's the school's account. And it's, like I said, your grades, assessments, how your child's doing, things of that nature. But here's what you'll see when you go in to vote. So once you log in to vote, you'll see this vote today. You'll actually see a green bar and it says vote today across the top. Just click on it. It'll take you here and you'll see one box for each of your children. And then depending on the different categories that your children are in, you'll see additional information. So for example, if you have 2 kids, you'll see 2 boxes, one for each student. And what you'll get is 3 votes per child per family. So if you have 1 child, your family will have 3 votes. If you have 2, you'll have 6 votes. And then what do you see after that? So once you select a child, it is going to tell you which elections you're allowed to vote in. It will give you the list. And you simply click on Start over here on the right side, and then it just takes you to the list of candidates that you can select. So you can pick 3 candidates. So if your first child, you select that child, it will take you to the previous screen, and then you, if your child's a gen ed student, an IEP student, a special needs student, you'll have that option to vote in the various CECs. Once you do, click on the Start for that child. You'll come to a screen that looks like this, and it will list all the candidates. And here you get to pick 3 candidates. Now, the interesting thing for citywide high schools, the citywide council for high schools, is there are 2 representatives per borough. So even though you can select 3, only 2 people will wind up representing each borough, whether it's Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, Queens, or the Bronx. And then so after you select those candidates that you choose, you'll then submit. You'll hit next, and then you'll register your votes. Now, the thing here to be careful of is once you vote, that's it. You can't go back and undo your votes. Once you submit, your votes are cast, and that's it. You can't go back and try to change your votes. So only one parent can vote. Now, depending if you come from a 2-parent household, I believe it's whichever parent goes in first to vote gets to vote. I was under the impression actually that it was the parent who registered the children had the permissions to vote, but I've been told that whichever parent logs in first and tries to vote is the one that votes. What is the strategy to elect as many place supporters as possible? Well, this isn't about electing place candidates. This is just about walking through people on how to vote and why it's important they should vote. So, you know, you should go out and vote for who you think is the best candidate that you believe. And it's simple as that. Now, if you choose to vote for a candidate who is like-minded, then, you know, as place members, and, you know, that's what you should do. If you have other opinions on voters, on candidates, then you should do that as well. So that's it. Once you submit, you're going to get an official receipt, and it tells you that you voted and how you voted. It gives you a little timestamp, and that's it. Then you're done. And then on May 11th, the balloting closes, and the DOE will then take however many days it needs to compile the results and announce the winners of each CEC and each citywide council. Any questions from anybody?
I had a quick question, Lucas.
Yes.
Did they give a timeline for when they might have all the candidates tallied?
I actually did not hear any timeline based on that. I would imagine since it's all automated, they should be able to do that fairly quickly, but you never know. They may have other challenges as they seem to be having with technology these days.
Because
So,
yeah, what we were discussing previous to the meeting was the borough president's application is still open, at least for my borough, through May 21st. So if you are interested in running and you missed the deadline for this election period, you may still be able to put yourself in for a borough president run. So I just wanted to mention that because we double checked the date on that. So
right. Good point. And so, if actually anybody on the call is now interested in being on their CEC but missed the submission date to be on the ballot, you can submit an application to your borough president. And as it was mentioned earlier, the borough presidents appoint 2 members to the CEC, to each of the CECs in their borough. And there is an application process, an interview process, and then a selection process. And I was actually borough president appointee for my first 2 terms on the CEC. And I can tell you my experience was it was pretty simple. I filled out the application form. I sent it in. I got a call a few weeks later asking me to come down for an interview. I went down for an interview. It was, I think, a 3-on-1 interview with Gail Brewer's staff. I think it lasted about 45 minutes. And that was it. And then a few weeks later, I got a phone call asking if I was still interested and would I like to be Gail's appointee, one of Gail's appointee to CEC3. And so that's how I started my career on CECs. This is my 3rd term. My 3rd term, I actually ran for the seat and I won the seat. So, all right, there's a question on the rules for the elections. Okay, so it can get a little complicated because of the way IEP candidates are elected. So in general, basic rule is there can only be 1 candidate. Of the 9 candidates, no school can have more than one candidate elected. So, however, if the IEP candidate gets them, if a Gen Ed and an IEP candidate are at the same school, if the Gen Ed candidate gets more votes and enough votes to win a seat, and the IEP parent also gets enough votes, is the IEP parent with the most number of votes, then both the Gen Ed parent and the IEP parent can be on the council. But the Gen Ed parent had to have gotten more votes than the IEP parent in order to be on the council. Now, if the IEP parent gets more votes, then that cancels out the Gen Ed parent. And the Gen Ed parent, even if they got enough votes to win, would not be seated on the council. The IEP parent would be the one that gets seated on the council. The borough president can appoint anybody they would like. In general, the person has to have some sort of connection to the district. They can appoint anybody they'd like to the council, and that person could already be in the same school as a parent who is elected. The 1 parent rule does not apply to the borough president appointees. And many parents do both. They will run for the election, and they will also submit their name for borough president appointee. If they don't think they would win and they think they have a chance of being appointed by the borough president. It's 2 separate processes. So you would have to request a application form from the DOE if you want to put your name in for the borough president appointee seat. And I think you can find that information on the DOE CEC website. Is that right, Alyssa, or did you receive your application email? How did you get that?
I believe there's a link on the CEC general site that directs you to the borough president's offices, and then I think you contact them. I do have the link for Queens. I did not pull the other ones. Can check.
Do you want to just check and post it? And I'll just keep
Yeah, sure. Hang on just 1 sec.
All right, so if you have multiple students, so the councils that you vote on, that you have permissions to vote on, depend on where your kids go to school. So if you have a middle school student, so for example, if your student goes to middle school in District 3, District 3, then you will vote for District 3 CEC. Now, if you also have a second student that is in middle school in District 4, you will vote in District 4 for that student as well. You'll get 3 votes for District 3 for your first student, 3 votes for District 4 for your second student. And if you have a student in high school, you'll get 3 votes for that student in that borough, CEC. So if you live in Manhattan, you will get 3 votes for the Manhattan CEC high school election. And then if your student is an IEP, you'll get 3 votes for the IEP candidates. If your student is an L student, an English language learner student, you will get 3 votes for the district where the student goes to school. And you will also get 3 votes for the citywide council for English language learners election as well. It's basically whatever district your student goes to school is where you will vote. Plus the additional other councils, high school, citywide council for English language learners, and so on. In District 75 council?
I just want to say that I posted the borough president appointee application for the upcoming term. It's one generic application. I believe they filter it to the borough president offices. And the second link I put up there is the eligibility section. And within that, there's a link for the public advocate, the 2 positions on the citywide high schools that the public advocate appoints. So there's also an opportunity for the high school level to apply through the public advocate's office.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? I don't know if there's more. Get everything in the chat for other questions. The important thing, though, is for everyone to vote. Make sure you get out and vote for whichever candidates you think best represent your district, your interests, however you want to vote. And like I said, it's 3 votes per child enrolled in a DOE school. Okay, so let's see, next slide. So I guess we actually just sort of walked through this, and we can walk through it again. Like 1 child, in this example uses District 20, you'll get 3 votes to apply towards candidates running CEC 20 election. If you're a child in District 20 and in Brooklyn Tech, then you'll get 3 for CEC 20 and 3 for the Brooklyn Citywide Council High School elections. And then if your student is also an L student, as I mentioned, you'll get 3 votes for the Citywide Council for English language learners. So it does get a little bit confusing, but the DOE does take care of this, informing you which councils you get to vote for, because once you log in for that child, it automatically knows what councils you can vote on, and then you're just presented with the menu of your councils, your votes, and then you just click on it to start. Click in the previous slide where it showed the elections that you could participate in. So another question, is the high school seat on CEC very important? The high school student, I think you mean the high school student seat, right? I will say it all depends. It's what the student wants to make of it. You know, some students want to get on just to learn and get a feel of what it's like. You know, in my council, we encourage the student to share their experiences and talk about it. And when we're discussing topics that that student has particular experiences with, you know, we ask to hear about it. The high school student is not a voting seat on the council, but obviously we would take the input very seriously from the students. And yes, we should encourage high schoolers to apply for the seat. It also looks good on the college application, right? That you're participating, you're doing civics and learning and participating in the decision-making process, especially, it's school. It affects that student. It affects the students in the district. So there's benefits to the student being on the council, for the student and obviously for the council to hear from the students. Now, granted, it's a high school student, and CECs are for K through 8, but the high school student has gone through the experience, in recent years, more so than the adults on the council. And there is an application process for that. So that form is online. If you go to the DOE website under CECs, you'll be able to see the application for the high school student.
I'll try to find it. Hang on.
Any other questions from anybody? Okay. So who should you vote for? If you go to the DOE website, you can see the candidate statements for all of the candidates that have submitted their names for election. All councils, all citywide councils, it's all there. So if it's also the video recordings of each of the presentations done for each of the CECs. The DOE ran several forums and where the candidates could speak and answer questions, and those were recorded and are online. So that's there for everyone to take a look at as well. For which, if you think a parent, based on their bio, might be someone you're interested in voting, you can go to the candidate forum archives and look for the video and look to see if that parent participated in the forum or not. You should also go and talk to the parents. If you know some of them, or if you know somebody who knows them, but parents should also be reaching out to the other parents in their district to let them know that they're running and let them know what their positions are on certain items. And whether it's reopening schools right now, whether it's on curriculum, whether it's on G&T, spring schools, or Shazat, whether it's on more types of certain classes, whatever you would like, whatever the perspectives are of that candidate. So it's up to the candidate to go out and try to introduce themselves to the parents, to the voters, and also the role of the parents to go find out who's running and get to understand what they're about, so that you can decide if you want to vote for that candidate or for somebody else. Place does have its recommended candidates, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. Any other questions from anybody?
Just a quick update. I did locate the top page for the high school student, but when I clicked on the link for download an application, it just goes to currently available seats. So I'm not sure if there's a separate application for high school students or not.
I know there is, and they actually should have posted. I was actually speaking to FACE 2 or 3 weeks ago about the high school application, and they said it was posted. But if it's not, it's not. We can always find it later, and we can reach out to FACE. If somebody actually has a high school candidate that may be interested, feel free to email either of us, where we can help find that application. Reach out to the DOE and get that application and forward it on to you. So when do you vote? Voting, as we mentioned, started on Saturday and it runs until the 11th. And so make sure you get out to vote. Encourage other parents to get out and vote. Like I said earlier, there's a lot happening within the education space here in New York City. And the next 3 to 12 months, there will be a lot of important decisions made, and you want to make sure your voice is being heard through the candidate that you select. So it's important to vote. And the other reason why it's important to vote is CECs are the starting point for a number of people who are now elected officials here in New York City. City Council, there are a number of current CEC members running for City Council. Mayor de Blasio started out on his local school board, which was the predecessor to the CECs. Could only imagine how things would be today if he was not elected to the school board back then. I think things would probably be a little more organized. That's the presentation. We're happy to, let me see here, stop sharing so we can all see each other. That's the presentation. Anybody have any questions on the process or on the elections? Melissa, anything else you want to add before we then close it out?
We're gonna post the presentation after and send the link, right?
Yes.
Okay, but
we have everybody's email, I think, right? Yeah, Tim? We have everybody's email, so we will send out the presentation to everybody, and feel free to forward it on to anybody you know who might be interested or couldn't attend tonight.
I'll try to post it on the website. I think maybe a good resource for people. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll post it to the website probably within the hour after. Okay. I'm putting pressure on Yatin to post.
I'll eat dinner first and then I'll. But yes, it'll be posted tonight.
Then that's everything we had to cover. Do a last call for questions from anybody. Okay then. Thank you everybody for taking time out tonight to join us. Hopefully we found this to be helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free here. What I'll do is I'll put my email in the chat, and you can email myself if you have any questions, and we'll get back to you.
And I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity tonight to talk about it. I know when I first wanted to run for the CEC, it was a really confusing process. And this year, with all the stuff that's going on, changing over to parent elections adds another layer of confusion to CEC elections. So I hope that we gave some good information tonight, and thank you for listening.
And back up, I saw a couple of questions. How many votes should a candidate have to get to be? Nobody knows. Actually, this is the first time they're doing it this way. Originally, when the 3 officers of the PTAs voted, I think some candidates got on with as few as, I think, 3, 4, or 5 votes. I know when I ran, I got 20, I don't remember, 23 or 24 votes. But I know that other candidates only needed 5, 6, or 7 and got on. If you're on the citywide councils, depending, back then you could get on with 1 vote. But with this current election process, nobody knows. This is the first time they're doing it, so nobody knows if you need 100 votes, you need 1,000 votes, probably somewhere in between. But when you go to vote, you can only, so if you have your 3 votes, you cannot put all 3 of your votes to one candidate. You actually have to, you can only give 1 vote per candidate for each of those 3. If you have 2 students, then you can vote for that same candidate twice, but you cannot take your 3 votes from 1 student and give 2 votes to 1 candidate. You actually have to give them to three different candidates. You don't have to use all 3 votes either. I don't think they require you to use all 3 of your votes. So that's how that works.
I just wanted to add, I asked what happens if there's a tie. I asked this recently, and apparently there will be runoff elections in some of the districts if there's not definitive winners. I'm not sure the time frame for that or how they're going to implement a second round, but that's what I was told.
Right. What else do we have in here? Somebody's asking, again, can you speak to the place candidate recommendations by school? So again, tonight isn't meant to publish or to talk about place candidates. This is more to get people out to vote, to teach people, inform people what CECs are and what they're about, the responsibilities and the roles and responsibilities of the CEC, and then also if parents weren't familiar with the voting process, to inform parents on how the voting process works. I will tell you, if you're interested in CECs or if you're currently a candidate, one thing you do have to remember, you're a volunteer, but you're volunteering, so get ready to put in your time. You know, some of these meetings, your monthly meetings could go 3, 4, 5 hours in a single night. So be prepared for that. And then, you know, you're putting in time to get to know the schools that you're responsible for, getting familiar to know all the issues in your district, and making sure that your parents, the voices of your parents, are being heard. And as a CEC member, you're not there to silence a parent just because they disagree with you. You're actually there to make sure that their voice is being heard, whether they agree with you or not. And that's important. You're there to represent all the parents in your district, not just the ones that happen to agree with you.
Lucas, I'll jump in here as someone on place that is not running for the CEC this year. I can maybe speak a little more freely. This presentation was actually done a few weeks ago, even before Place put out our recommendation. And as Lucas said, it was really meant to serve as a way to educate parents, to get them prepared to vote, and to have the highest possible participation, because we at Place do believe that our voices count, and the only way you can make your voice count is to participate in the process. If you're interested, and I know many of you are interested in which candidates we recommend and support, those are on our website. So you can definitely go to our website and take a look at those lists. It's not a comprehensive list because this is all parent volunteer. And we used public information such as candidate statements, their participation in candidate forums, as well as for some of the parents that are running again, incumbents, they have a public record because we talked about the open meetings. So we use those sources as well as just our parent network to understand what their positions are. So if you care and want to support the Place advocacy, definitely go to our website and check it out.
And so, right, if you really want to drill down into the candidates, and I guess you could go and look at the current candidates who are current CEC members and see how they voted on certain issues in your district. It should all be posted on their CEC website. All of the resolutions, all the meeting minutes. So if you have that time, you can certainly go and take a look at that information as well. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. I hope this was helpful to you. And again, my email is in the chat there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly, and we're happy to try to answer your question.
I put one extra link in there and I made a mistake when I posted it the first time. This is the DOE, NYC DOE video in English, also on how to vote. If you need additional information, I'm hoping that this was enough, but if you want to watch another video about it, that's up there too.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.